Hello again, algebra students. Welcome to Chapter 9, Section 4, which is we're going to be talking about today. That's 9-4. On your paper, I don't think I wrote the topic or objective, so if it's not on there, would you please write that on there? This is what we're doing. We're solving quadratics by factoring, quadratic equations by factoring. So guess what? Remember that factoring we did in the previous chapter of the trinomials? Yes, it's back. It's not going to go away. You're going to have to be able to do that to get through this material here in chapter 9-4. Cool thing is, if you do know how to factor, it's really easy, really super easy. And it's all based on this concept right here, the zero product property, which begins on page 568 in your book. All right, well, let's review what the zero product property is. It's something you know. Something that is second nature to you at this part. Here's what it is written out in algebra terms. Copy this down. If a times b equals 0, then a equals 0 or b equals 0. Okay? What it means is that one factor must equal 0. For the product to equal 0. Okay, so that's the first thing. This entire lesson is based around that idea that if you multiply two things, a times b, one of them has to be 0. Okay, so if you would, please put a line there, a break, and then going down the page, here you see this next part, solving using the zero product property. So we're going to show you now how to solve a quadratic using that idea right there. And here's an example problem on your page. Parenthesis 4x plus 1 times x minus 1. All right, so in the middle, would you please recopy that problem, 4x plus 1 times x minus 1 equals 0. All right, so what we just said above is that if you had two, let's pretend for a moment that this binomial here, let's pretend that that's a. And let's pretend that this binomial is b. They're being multiplied. It's a times b. And we also know that it is set equal to 0. Okay, well, if that's the case, here's what you should be thinking. Think, in your mind, you're going to be thinking that 4x plus 1 is a, okay, and x minus 1 is b. Okay, so 4x minus 1 is a. It's supposed to be quotes right there. It's really hard on my writer at home to do those little marks. So that's a and that's b. Well, if that's the case, one of those has to equal 0. So all we have to do is figure out what are the numbers that would make that 0. Here's how we work it out. Put a little squiggly line in where the multiplication is there. And underneath 4x plus 1, what you want to do is figure out, well, if 4x plus 1 equals 0, what would x be? How would we solve that? Well, we would solve a two-step equation here. You'd have 4x is negative 1. Divide that by 4. And you have x equals negative 1/4. Please just leave that as a fraction. That's one of the solutions. That's an intercept of that parabola. It's a quadratic here. This is a quadratic. If we multiply this out, that would be 4x squared, 1x, negative 4x, plus negative 1. All right, that's one of the solutions. So if this were to be graphed, that is the x-intercept. Where if this is y, again, that's y. If that's y is 0, then one possible solution would be x is negative 1/4. So you'd imagine a parabola going through that point where negative 1/4 and 0. All right, but it has another solution. X minus 1 could also equal 0. So if x minus 1 is equal to 0, if we add 1 to both sides, x could equal 1. That's another possible solution. So the solutions for this are x equals negative 1/4 or x equals 1. Okay, so like I was saying, if we figured out what this vertex was, and I know you're kind of probably pressed for space in there, but if we were to graph this, this would go, if that's negative 1 and that's 1, well, negative 1/4 would be like right there, 1 would be right there. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but you would have, those are the solutions. That's where y is 0. Okay, that would be like negative 1/4 and 1 right there. But we found it out using algebra, and now we don't have to worry about that graph trying to calculate what a fraction is or a value that's not a nice integer that would be easy for us to solve. Okay, so this is another way to solve a quadratic equation. So far you've learned graphing. We did perfect squares, solving square roots yesterday, and now the next one is solving by factoring. It's very easy to do if you can factor the trinomial, but not all trinomials can be factored. Well, let's look at one more at the bottom of your page here. Let's squeeze this in here. So in the middle, if you haven't drawn a line, draw a line separating. I know you're on the same page here. 2x plus 1 and x plus 14. Okay, so 2x plus 1 times x plus 14 equals 0. Okay, so again, that's A, that's B. So one of these has to equal 0 if we're going to have a solution. So we're going to go 2x plus 1 equals 0, and we're going to solve that. Subtract 1, 2x is negative 1, divide by 2, x is negative 1/2, and the other one, x plus 14 is 0, subtract 14, x negative 14. Okay, so the solutions are x is negative 1/2 and x is negative 14. Right there you go. Okay, so what we're going to look at next is what happens if we have a quadratic and it's not factored. Guess what you're going to have to do? Yeah, you're going to have to factor it. Okay, and we're going to do that in the next video here. So turn your paper over and I will go through the two examples on the back, and hopefully that'll have you set up in the next video.